If everyone takes a moment with me together to be miyashev adat, to settle our minds, to return to our consciousness. Whatever technique or tool you know. If you've been with us before, just on the mastery program online, one of the seminars, one of the weekly elevation sessions here in Yerushalayim with us, Jerusalem with us. If you've learned some mindfulness technique, whatever you know, visualization technique, whatever you use, there are many wonderful things to use in the world, to know in the world, many amazing things to be exposed to, but the rule is always make sure at least you're using what you've already learned. Keep building the foundations with what you've already learned, with what you already know. Whatever comes with that after that can take you higher. Sometimes, especially in our generation, we're so hungry for the new, we forget to practice the old. And when the real new comes, you'll see the real new, the powerful new, the bigger new takes skill sets, it takes practice, it takes discipline. And sometimes you get exposed to something big, but you can't grasp it, can't be massing it, because you don't yet have the hagdamas, you don't yet have the building, the infrastructure, the tool set, the skill set. So practice what you know. Practice what you know. Practice makes perfect. It's not perkeavus, but it's still true nevertheless. Okay, let's begin. Welcome to everybody. Some new faces, some old faces, and a lot of good faces. We're going to go weiter this week, forward this week. I know there was very interesting things that happened for people that were here last week, and a lot of people want to revisit that and go deeper with that. And we will, and we can, in the online Elevation Mastery Program. That's where we have more time to go in depth for things. Today, what we're going to do in a brief, little less than 2-hour session, an actual elevation seminar. We actually do it for 5 or 6 hours besides the introduction, just to live in that space. Person be given a great gift, but unless they enter into the space of it, the experience of it, the consciousness of it, then it just passes by. They don't realize the gift they've been given. So tonight I want to share with you a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful teaching from the great Maggid of Mezrich, who was perhaps one of 2 great students of the Baal Shem Tov. One is, of course, the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, who so much of the Torah that we have came because he really sat by the Baal Shem Tov for many years and wrote down Torah after Torah. So much of the tradition that we have is from his teachings, the first main book to be released of Chassidus, the Toldos Yaakov Yosef. And the other great Talmud, which really, ironically, in a complex way, came very late to the game to learn with the Baal Shem Tov, yet was given the crown, actually not originally, but at least a year later after the Baal Shem Tov's passing, and his not just personal godless and siddha, spiritual greatness and mastery and knowledge and genius, but also the wisdom of understanding management and infrastructure and how to build a movement, took Hasidus physically out into the world. But his teachings are very extraordinary. And tonight I want to learn with you a teaching. Just a quick show of hands. Hands up if you've been here one of the previous weeks, been part of this journey. A little hands up if it's the first time here in the room with us. Okay, fine, great. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn a source on the inside. I hope everyone has sheets. And then what we're going to do is put down the sheets and get out of our heads and take it into our hearts and take it into our souls. Can you hear that, son? But we have to learn because we have to know what the direction is, what the map is. But we have to put down the map and go to the place. Both of these things are necessary. I appreciate that sometimes an imbalance of one to the other. But hopefully these kind of teachings and these kind of sessions will light the way. There's a ma'aser about of Shneur Zalman of Liadi, who was on his deathbed, the founder of the movement of Chabad Hasidus. And he was an unbelievable genius. Shneur Zalman, Shnei Or, the two lights of Nigla and Nista, of the Makifim and the Panimium, of the understanding the genius of the spiritual experience, also understanding the genius of the brilliance of just halacha and Torah, and being bridge of those two things together. That's why Zalman is Yiddish word for Shlomo. Shlomo is Shlemus, the perfection of Torah. Shlomo Melech built the base of Mikdash, that's which unites, the temple which unites heaven and earth together. So he attained a level on his deathbed, which is one of the highest, if not the highest goals of all of Torah, is to gain to this level. There's a story that has it, as it's told, that the Tzemach Tzedek, his grandson, was by him, a young child, on his deathbed. And he turned to his grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, and said, when you look up at the ceiling, you see the beams on the ceiling. Korah, you see the beams up at the ceiling. He says, what do you see? He said to his grandchild, look up there, what do you see? It's a bit of a cryptic question. What do you mean, what do I see? If you look over there at the wall, what do you see? The answer is, I see a wall. So he looked up, and the grandson says, yeah, Korah, it's a beam. He says, what do you see, Zaidi? And the Zaidi says, I also see a Korah. He says, I see Kuf, Vav, Resh, Hey. I no longer see the beams. I now see the letters that are giving form to the beam. And it was that as he looked around the room, he could no longer see the room. He could no longer see the reality. He could only see the Hebrew letters that formed the reality. Now, for many generations, this was very hard to understand. Chazdei Hashem, we live in a generation where everybody, including every rabbi, has seen the Matrix. And we have to raise those sparks as much as we can. And we know that in the Matrix, Neo is able to, in the last shlav, the last phase, suddenly his eyes are opened, the doors of perception open. He attains a state which are called in the mystics Gan Eden, Das Elyon, Das the Dechor, the Baal Shem Tov discusses, where he no longer sees the world with his lower eyes. He's now introduced and elevated and accesses seeing the world through his higher eyes. And he no longer sees the world, he can see the letters. And so much of Kabbalah and so much of Chassidus is about learning to see the letters, experience the letters. And people are like, what does it mean, letters? So letters obviously doesn't mean letters. It doesn't mean code and zeros and ones. Letters are energetic forces, primary energetic forces, like quarks, like quantum mechanics. They're the most elemental forces of life. And if you shift between atoms and you shift down to quantum level and you go down to quarks and you go down to the 11 level, what's the ultimate primary element that there's 22 of, to which everything is structured or reality is there? They were able to see that all of reality, every element, every sound, every sight, every image, all the matter, all the smell, was only made up of those elements. The Baal Shem Tov has a very beautiful Torah. It took me a long time to understand what it means. Now I think theoretically I understand what it means. I imagine me and many people take more than one lifetime to achieve that. But he says when we live today, if we struggle, if we grow spiritually, what most of us can access is something called Das de Nukva, the feminine aspect of Das. If you've been with us, if you've been to the seminars, we know that what we seek to attain is something called Das, higher consciousness, higher awareness, higher perception. And when we get that, when we feel Hashem's love, we feel Hashem's light, we think, wow, this is it. The chocolate factory is mine. I've got the golden ticket. I'm living a spiritual life. But it goes deeper. That's not it. There's something called Das D'Chora. He says, when the Jews came out of Egypt, what became possible in reality, what became possible for every Jew, every person, it became accessible to the human experience. When we left Egypt, we left Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim means Meitzarim. It means constricted consciousness of living in exile, disconnected from my soul, disconnected from myself, disconnected from my neshama, my sense, my purpose. And I lifted up my consciousness that I could be aware, I could be mindful, I could be sensitive, I could be spiritually perceptive, energetically perceptive. But there's something greater. Something greater is something reserved for the end of the game, for the end of the days. It's when we access Das Elyon, we access Ratzon, the highest super consciousness, and that comes to be a part of us, it comes to dwell within us. And then no more do we say there's a physical world, but I could be spiritual in a physical world, because all that's left now is the obvious. My eyes are so wide open that all there is an absolutely spiritual, energetic reality, and there's no physical world to perceive at all. It's not I'm a spiritual person, a physical world. It's like, what physical world? Mazeh, physical world, as they say in America. And that's called, in the lashon of the Baal Shem Tov, Das D'Chora, which means Das Elyon. That's the level of refinement, of spiritual refinement, of intellectual refinement, of imagery refinement, of emotional refinement, of purification of the guf, the zikuch of the nefesh at Bahamas, the purification of ourselves until that higher soul, we can enter into the higher soul and the higher soul enters into us. And then it's not just a spiritual sensation, it's not just a cosmic experience. It's Ein Od Milvadoi. There is nothing else but that. And that's I look up at the ceiling, I look up at the wall. All I see is the letters, the primary force, and there's nothing else to see. In the next 2 hours, we're all going to be holding on that level. Not really, I just wanted to say that out loud. All your money back. Bli Neder. Bli Neder is Jewish for not really. We're all going to be on that level. Bli Neder. Yes, I'm definitely coming to a shiur on Thursday night. Bli Neder. But what we can attain, I want you to know, first of all, I want you to know that people attain that. I know people that attain that. Normal people, nice people, good people. Some people in this room. They don't usually live on that level, but they get a glimpse of that level. They're gifted a glimpse of that level. Sometimes lahavdil, it comes from drugs or some kind of thing that they took. Sometimes it happens when they're in a near-death experience or a near-life experience, as someone I know once called it. When people have so many near-death experiences, they wake it up to a whole new level of life. It's really a near-life experience. Sometimes people in deep states of meditation, sometimes they're praying, sometimes they're by Kivrei Tzadikim, the graves of the great spiritual masters, and they are given a gift and open up to the place, and they look around and they see the oisius, they see the letters, they see the infinite permutations of the letters and all things. I want you to know, we struggle to achieve great heights, but sometimes we are blessed and we merit to have great heights given to us. But there is something that is more achievable and equally, perhaps not equally, but equally to our level, extraordinary. That's the level of Das D'Chora, Das Nukva. It's the level of where it is possible, my friends, that I can experience the energy of that, the feeling of that, the sense of that. I may not see that visually, but I sense that with my soul as a reality. And I want you to know you can practice, even according to our level, to access that to experience that and maintain that for days and sometimes weeks at a time, at least hours and certainly minutes every day. And I want to share with you a teaching by the Maggid of Mezrich, where he talks about this explicitly, and he maps it out like it's like the easiest thing in the world, like it makes sense, like it's a tool not that you can use, but it's a tool that you're supposed to use as part of a vote as Hashem, as opposed to a divine transformation, elevation of our consciousness. So I want to learn this teaching with you. And there are many ways into this. I'm going to show you one of the ways into this. We're going to use a hachana, the preparation tool that we've been learning for many weeks. If you haven't done that with us, we'll give you a brief introduction. We'll enter it together. And then we're going to start playing around with this. Maybe we'll continue next week. Perhaps if we learn it this week and we dance with it a little this week, and next week we could have, if people are brave and they're on time, we could enter into a whole session of just doing all session. And that's pretty intense and amazing things happen. When we do a full elevation seminar, we go into the state for a few hours. Some very amazing things can happen. So let's just introduce it together. Because he has a very magical, wonderful way of not just introducing and explaining it, but weaving it into the most fundamental understanding of consciousness and psychology. So it's worth, even if we spend half an hour on this right now, just mapping this out, understanding this. So I'm going to read it and we'll talk it out together. Fancy table. Any questions so far before we begin?
Yeah.
Yes.
May I?
You may. And you are. Yes. Remind me your name again? Gadi.
Thank you. The letters, do they have a male and female? Energy breakdown into male and female?
Yeah, for sure. Of course. Everything in the world breaks down to male and female. Yes, but there's male within female and female within male. There's many permutations. You can say everything in the world breaks down to God, but that's not such a sophisticated distinction, right? Everything in the world, as he's going to say here, actually has not just a unified expression, but a unique expression. You and me are one, but it doesn't mean we're the same. Should I say that again? You and me are one, but it doesn't mean we're the same. We're different expressions of the one. And I could say we're one, and we can just get rid of one of us. But no, there's something Gadi can express that Daniel Katz can express. With all my learning, it's not because I'm learned more than you, and you could have learned more than me. You may learn more than me, but there's a different way. There's a Chidushei Torah that everyone has, which is deep and unique. So we're all one, but we're all unique, and that uniqueness is there's a divine uniqueness. There's things that separate us, which are artificial separation. But there's things that separate us, which are true soul separation, and that needs to be celebrated. People have this image that, as the Tanya says in chapter 32, that, when we go into our souls, we're all really one. So people think that if I go into transcendent soul experience, that everything's just like cut and wool and blurred out. No, the spiritual world is a world of greater clarity, greater uniqueness, greater perception, but it's a true uniqueness. It's the greatness of what your uniqueness is and the greatness of what my uniqueness is. So we can say everything's one and everything's masculine and feminine and everything's primary energy and everything's the energy of divine. But what Jews have done for 3,000 years on an exceptional level is we understand distinction within abstraction. In the spiritual world, there's primary colors, and when you understand that, then you can make magic in the physical world, because then you understand the tachlis and the toelis, the purpose and uniqueness of everything in reality. And that's what a Jew is not. We're not supposed to go into this infinite place of unity. That's a very nice thing. It's a wonderful thing. I read it every day, right? But we're supposed to come back and see, who are you as different to me? And then how do I treat you? How's your journey unique from mine? What's your contribution different from mine? And how is this plant different from that plant? Or why does this fruit taste different from that fruit? And everything in the world is unique, but radiant with the light of its uniqueness. Avanta. Good. Should we quit there? Okay. La'at Habibi. La'at Habibi, as they say in America. Right. So someone behind you. Say what's your name?
It's Martin.
Martin. Yes.
Quick question. What is Hachana?
Hachana. Wonderful. Hachana means preparation. And we've learned something called the elevation Hachana, which is a very, very deep transformative meditational technique, which the sages bring down. We've learned in previous weeks. We learned it in the Elevation seminar. But it's actually called a hachana, a preparation, ironically, and we'll talk about that another time. You can see the classes online. On YouTube, we now have a page, and everyone can get all the class you've been missing there. But a hachana means that when you want to do a mitzvah, when you want to do a spiritual act, people often say, mitzvahs aren't so spiritual. I know a lot of religious people, they're not living the high supernatural spiritual level all the time. So it says in the Kitvei Avi, it says that it's not the action that you do, it's the state that you do it in. It's not just the action you do, right? It's also the action you do, but it's the state you do it in. So the mystic said, when you put on tefillin, when you pray the word, you can pray all the words and mumble a bunch of Hebrew words. It has an effect, but it's minimal effect. But if you do a preparation, a chana, to get into the right state, spiritually, energetically, emotionally, and then you say the words, then electric things happen. Mitzvahs are transformative when we access the right state. So the many mystics, they refer to a lot in Chassidus as well as hachanas, preparations. But nobody does a mitzvah without preparing for the mitzvah. We discussed the Kedushas Levi. It says the preparation for the mitzvah is more important than the mitzvah. How can that be? It's heretical. It doesn't really mean it's more important, but it means that if you do a mitzvah, there's no preparation, then it's very hard to get value from it and experience your way. But you do the preparation, and we can be taken to whole new levels. Let us begin. So the Das de Dechor and the Das de Nukva. Today we're going to focus on a technique of Das de Nukva. Das de Nukva, as the Baal Shem Tov defines it, as a person can be energetically tuned in to the spiritual energy with everything. They can learn to maintain that. There's profound spiritual consequence and effect of that. And there's profound psychological benefits to that, as we're going to learn right now from the Maggid. And Das the Dechora, to actually see the Oasis itself, as the Baal HaTanya did, as all the DKMs did, as it's all through Chassidus and Kabbalah. And I'm telling you, many people in our door get given that gift. They get gifted that by Hashem. So it's not for us to attain. The gift has to be given. But I want you to know, if a person prepares it the right way, they're more likely to access that. As we know, in Bereshis, there was a tree of life in the middle of the Gan, and next to it, or more accurately in a Kabbalistic sense, around it, there was the Eitz Das Toiv V'Ra, the tree of life, the Eitz Chaim, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and all the secrets and all of the world, of all of consciousness, all of history, and all of who we are. Isn't that? But it's hard for me to hold back because I want to go into that. But I'll Rahmanis on you all, and we'll stay very, very focused. So he begins by saying this line, because we're going to come back to this line. The tree of life is within the Gan. And then he says, let me explain this to you. He wants to give you a revolutionary spiritual technique and also excellent psychological advice. And they're both one and the same. And he's going to begin by going, this just makes you a happier, healthier, more normal, functional person. And takes you to the Garden of Eden. There is, when a person goes to learn the ultimate spiritual act or pray, the other ultimate spiritual act, the secret to doing that, here's the whole Torah, is just consider yourself, imagine yourself, use your consciousness to be in Gan Eden. That's the Torah. Wasn't that profound? Okay, let's do that now on the count of 3. All these stories, all these songs, all modern, everything's about getting back to the Garden of Eden. Gan Eden, according to Tikkunei Zohar, the Shema Kedoshim, Gan Eden means, what does it mean? Be'etzem, it means to access the Keta, the Ratzon, the Das Elyon within you. When a person accesses that place, that's what it means. Gan Eden, a little we'll go into now, and another for another time when we're teaching Torah and not meditation. Gan Eden means Eden, the world of pleasure, the consciousness of pleasure, where everything I see is only Elokus, is only divinity. I only access that place by getting to that state of consciousness where it exists as reality. And I left the Garden of Eden. I fell into my lower consciousness, in the Eitz Das Tevurah, the physical world. Everything is, I like it, it's good, I hate it, it's bad. The world of schism, Alma de Peruda, the world of fragmentation. And that's where I live. I love you, I hate you, I want that, I hate it, I want that pizza, I hate that pizza, I want more money, I hate more pizza, I want to marry you, now I want to divorce you. I'm constantly in turmoil in the world of schism, in the world of fragmentation. And if I can access, and it's protected by the angel with a spitting source, which is a sword source as well. All the sources, the pizza sources, especially in Jerusalem, they have kids get stabbing. Every time we go to these places, the kids are studying 15 varieties of sauce, and they forget their whole soul and their purpose of life. It's like everyone has to argue. Now with the red one, then we're going to have the green one. Now with the red one last week. That's basically all of us in the world of sauce. When we enter into that world, that reality, we lose contact with that perception, and all we're trying to do, the angel with a spinning sword, is a dimion, our imagination. That's what the Swam teaches. I say that's really what it's all about. We fell out of that consciousness and we seek to re-access that consciousness. So what he says is, when we go to learn and when we go to pray, a person must re-access Gan Eden. That's it. Why? Asher ein sham lo kina v'lo taiva v'lo gaiva. In that place of Gan Eden, you don't have jealousy, you don't have lust, you don't have ego, you don't have any desire. And you're saved from all the desires that push you and pull you in this world. And desires don't just push and pull us in this world, and ego doesn't push and pull us in the world. The pushing and pulling, whether I choose that sauce in my pizza or that sauce, the new iPhone or the old iPhone, hang out with this guy or this girl or not, when I choose to dress in this costume in the morning or not dress that costume, or I need to buy another fancy costume, or, right? All of that, more than the action is destructive or sin or bad, it's consuming my consciousness. It's filling my mind. It's not giving me time to feel deeper, to think deeper, to tune into something deeper. Paro kept us in Mitzrayim, and paro is the root of the word mafriya, which means distractions. The world distracts us and consumes us. When you go to learn, when you go to pray, it's not a question of, do you have kavanah? Were you paying attention to the words on the page? The essence of kavanah, of intent, of focus, of concentration, according to all the mystical writings, is not to pay attention to the words on the page. Of course it is, but that's an outcome. It means kavanah, it means that you're tuned into your soul. You're tuned into the energy of that moment. You're tuned into higher consciousness. And as long, when you go to learn, you're not just supposed to learn the words and think intellectually, you're supposed to fall through the words into the energetic principles behind the words. And that's something doable and something in elevation. We teach people how to do that. You get people into states, and then you put that incredible piece of Torah in front of them, and you find sometimes in wonderful classes where the teacher's a little deeper, if you go to the classes of Tzaddikim, you find that you're not just hearing with your mind, you're hearing with your heart, you're hearing with your soul. And the more they speak, you're falling into it. If you open up, you just kind of fall into it. And that's where we need to be. And as long as we're thinking in ego mind and ego mentality and fear mentality and jealousy mentality, our consciousness is consumed by external thoughts, external feelings, and we're just saying some words. I'm just learning an intellectual idea. It's not the Haredi world. Everyone likes to blame. It's because we're not taught this in school. It's because we've lost the Kedusha of how we listen, of how we engage. You can learn Gemara. When you learn Gemara, it's just this intellectual stuff back and forth. When you learn in that state of Kedusha and Tahara, you fall through the words. I'm not telling you something unattainable. I'm telling you something attainable. All my Chabura do that. All my friends do that. That's how we learn. So this is what he says. If you go to Gan Eden, a state of consciousness, and in that place, when you're in that consciousness, there's no kid, there's no jealousy, there's no fear, there's no lust, there's no ego. And therefore you're saved from all the panias, all these little tiny desires which are pushing and pulling our mind and not allowing it to go deeper. A person needs to understand, how would a person, I was going to say, oh, very nice, Magda Mezrich, but what do you mean, go to Gan Eden? How do we go to Gan Eden? That's what he's saying. He asked you that. He asked you a question for you. Saving you time. He cares for you. How would a person think about going to Gan Eden? For who you do about Atzma, the person's not in Gan Eden. I'm sitting in this room. in the shul. I'm sitting in the base bedroom. I'm learning. I'm sitting in a class. I know I'm not in Gan Eden. And I know that person really annoys me. And I know I was going out with that girl 4 years ago. I don't want to see her right now in this room. And I thought that guy. And I know that I'm tired and I'm exhausted. And I'm worried about that job tomorrow. How am I going to pay the rent? What do you mean think you're in Gan Eden and everything will vanish? So I'm not thinking I'm in Gan Eden. I'm in a room and I know everybody's issues and my issues. So what's he saying? But, okay. When a person goes into the Dveikus, this is what we've been teaching. This is everything we're teaching. When you start first by settling your mind, when you then go second to connecting his kashrus to Hashem, when you draw your mamshech deveichus, mamshech or mamshech emunah, when you draw that light and energy into it until you get to the level of emunah haivarim, that's what we've learned, that's what we discussed. When you feel the energy coming through your whole body, and then you add what we've done with our machshava maps, when you start awakening love and awe, love of Hashem and love of people, love of the world, and awe of Hashem that there's some greater light within me. I'm small. This is not theory. These are things we've done. We've been doing this for years at Sevadas. We can learn this. We've done this over the last few weeks. When you start with the Dveikus and you connect to love and awe within your body, and then you strengthen the Dveikus more, and we did this and we will do this again, and then you learn, and then you pray. Okay? And then you think, you ready? And then you have to think this line. This is the secret now. So the first step is Dveikus, spiritual energy with love and awe. That's the first step. And then what happens, my friends? Then you start thinking, in all of Kabbalah and all of Chassidus, you hear this line over and over again. It's from Chazal already. And before. That the whole world is full of divine revelation. Malach Chol Haaretz, as the Hasidic masters say, not heaven is filled with divine revelation. The ground, the earth, our physical lust and ego and desire and fear and pain and jealousy, that's also full of divine revelation. Our failures, our mistakes, my beaten, broken heart, all that suffering in life, all the politics and all the narishkeit, all the shtuyos of the silliness of the Western world, all of it is full of divine revelation. When you start thinking in that way and feeling that, and then you start seeing that. So that's what he says. And you think, and then you say, V'leis asa penui minei. This is another classic line. V'leis asa. There is no place that is empty, that is a vacuum of God. But didn't God create Tzimtzum? So the Hasidim said, yeah, but not really. Because if you created Tzimtzum, I don't want to get into any controversy right now. I know people are digging in their heels right now. But at the end of the day, they're right. Even if you create a vacuum of God, where is that vacuum of God? It's in God. And all the stuff that's created in that vacuum, where's that all coming from? God. Okay. That's not the end of the argument, I understand. But it's enough to begin to grasp that something extraordinary here is happening. And this is what we say. So when we say, and everything therefore is full of chiyas of Hashem, Baruch Hu. Everything has divine energy within it in real time. Nimsa kol shema shira'eh hu'ra'eh rak chiyas haborei Baruch Hu hanimshach boi. Therefore, everything that you see, you're only seeing the energy of Hashem, the electricity of Hashem, the life force of Hashem, the unique revelation of Hashem being drawn into it and through it. Otherwise, it would not exist at that moment. Because Einan Milvadeh, there's nothing else besides it. B'derech mashal. If you see a person who have nisam, you see the person. What do you see? You see the person. You see the neshama. You ever see a neshama? You don't see the neshama. You can't see the neshama, but we're not used to tuning in to seeing the neshama. You see the body. You see a form. This one's taller or shorter, fatter or skinnier. This one has got red hair or blue hair. This one is quote unquote prettier. This one is quote unquote less pretty. You see an external reality. For Shemer Koilam, and you hear their voice. There's a voice. It's higher or lower. This is a gashmiistic way of thinking. It's a physical, lower perception way of thinking. For Deburim, v'chachmasem, you see, they're smart or they're not so smart, or they have these kind of ideas, or they're more democratic or more Republican, they're more religious, they're more secular. You see all that that's external way of viewing something, right? But all of that, every single distinction, every single element is all coming in from divine energy. Not just their body, not just every cell in the body, but every thought they have, the level of their voice, their whole kind of life philosophy and trajectory, whether it believes in God, whether it rejects God, every single element, even if Cook says that, even rejection of God has a purpose and is created by God himself. All of that in real time has Hashem drawing, being nimshach, being drawn into that to give that reality, give that chiyus. Every single thing in reality that you see, every single thing in reality that you hear, the plants behind me, the wall, or the cheap IKEA bookshelf, and the glass, the tzaddik is holy. Yeah, but the frame and the glass and the plastic, whatever, that's just nothing. No, all of that as well, and the blue tack of the frame in when it came out, all of that as well is all only coming from one place. Ki b'chol davar yesh tavnis v'toelis. Every single thing, Gadi, has a form and a function, a purpose, which is its unique purpose of why it was created. Everything, good or bad, has a purpose. Or how it looks, how it smells. Everything, therefore, comes from a certain frequency, a certain chiyas, a certain gift, a certain shefa, a certain bracha of Hashem. Therefore, when a person learns or prays with love and with awe, for sure, 100%, when a person enters into the Vegas, when you enter into higher consciousness, when you enter into a deep meditational state of connecting to the light, then you become naturally more sensitive to perceiving that in everything around you. You become attuned to that frequency. This is not in theory, it's a very practical experience a person can learn to do. You become alert and attentive to see that and to remember that I should be seeing that. That's two different things. One is the capacity to see it, and the capacity to see it, it's quite easy once you get the hang of it, but we just forget about it. We sink into the world and forget that I'm supposed to be perceiving that, and that's what we're doing it's supposed to be perceiving that and then working to perceive that. And even if you learn this technique, when I learned this technique years ago, I go, wow, that was amazing, and then forget to use it for 6 months. And open up, oh yeah, do that technique, and I do it, and like blow it out of my mind for 2-3 days, walk on ice, and forget to do it. It's so weird. Would you like to live in a dull, frustrating, anxiety-inducing reality or high spiritual super reality? 99.9% of the population would put up their hand and say the second one. So I'm going to teach you a tool now in a few weeks in the Elevation Mastery Program. You'll be able to do it, and you won't do it. You know why? Because you forget. You forget. I've had students dealing with depression. You say, what do you mean? We go to the psychiatrist, get drugs. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know to take them. I don't know. Are they not work? Yeah, they work, but I don't understand. What are you doing? You want to be happy? You want to be sad? Never ask someone that. Never ask someone that, because everyone's going to say I want to be happy, and most of our actions come from a place where we want to be sad. You can ask someone, you can feel smart about yourself saying it, but Devekus lo b'shamayim. Higher consciousness is not in the world, and the capacity to start to see spirituality all around us and to live with that, you can do it. If you don't do it today, we'll practice it next week and you'll be able to do it. So why don't we live that way? I was busy. I had to check my Facebook. I had to get that assignment done. I had to improve a project I'm launching. I had to finish because I'm too busy learning Torah. I don't have time to connect to God. It's very, very fun of you. I appreciate that. I'm sure Hashem is especially very impressed. So the more you enter the Vekas, the more likely you are to remember that wow, this is good stuff. You got another hit. Wow, I want to live with this. And I want to find the divinity. Not I'm in that state. Okay, that was now back to meditation. I push people out of the way to get out the door, to get on the bus, to check my emails, yada, yada. I'm gone. But wow, now I realize that I should be living with that. And more than that, The Zarias, now the urgency is to actually, it's nice and it's geschmack, and I start to use it, I start to practice the skill set, and it becomes not just a skill where you have to push yourself, it becomes intuitive and natural, and it's wonderful. Now listen to this. Because when a person goes to the Vekas and they learn with love and fear and they pray with love and fear, for sure, they more urgently and they more pursue that and they're more attentive to remember this, because once they're connected with Hashem in their consciousness, that they all you see and all you sense is the divinity with everything, because everything comes from Hashem. So once you're seeing that, then of course you're just more likely to do that. I always think that the thing about an appetizer. Why is an appetizer called an appetizer? Is to open your appetite. I'm sure there's a generation where that made sense. In our generation, most people go to the steak restaurant and they stare at this menu and they've been in for 5 hours and they just want to have a mikvah of steak. They just want to dive in and immerse in all that taiva. I've yet to meet a person that says, I don't want to eat anything here. Give me an appetizer. I can't remember why I bothered coming to this restaurant. I think they used to be at a big ballet madriga, big spiritual levels, that they needed an appetizer to re-engage them. And I'm enjoying chewing on stuff. Perhaps I'll get something more elaborate for the next verse. I've yet to meet the individual who needs such a thing. Perhaps the Balatanian is on such a level, but MS. So, but this idea is that we do need appetizers for spirituality. Now that the Oisik will emerge in the physicality, we need a seminar, an elevation, something. We need a Buddhist meditation retreat, Lahavdil, hopefully less and less for Yidden, for Jews, to remind us, that this tastes good, the Vegas tastes good, Yeshiva Das tastes good, Avenue tastes good. Torah mitzvah is actually beautiful. Shabbos is not 39 things that you can't do. It's one extraordinary thing of connection that you can do. And then you get hungry. Now I want the main course. And I just want to live with the Vegas. I want to enter into everything. Ein ad movadai. There's nothing else but that. So once you get a taste of that, then for sure you want that everywhere. You seek that everywhere. Call me, because everything's now from Hashem. And you see it, the more you see it, the more you see it. The more you see it, the more you see it. And the problem is, the less you see it, the less you see it. The whole mahalach of the Olam HaGashmi is the less you see it, the less you see it. The more you forget it, the less you engage in it. The more you forget it, the less you engage in it. You slow down. And then the more you see it, you more want, you more see it, the more you want. So it's all about momentum. It's all about momentum. All Avodas Hashem is about momentum. When you get on a good roll, don't break and keep going. Rak. So here we are now. Shehu chias abori melubash b'kelim shonim kiviyachol. You start getting used to seeing Hashem everything and everywhere, not just in the meditative state, but in the living, breathing state, which becomes a meditative state. That's called the shtavas. It's the vekas in our lives, equanimity. Everything in the world is a vessel holding a divine light. And this is the secret he's going to tell you right now. And mekalim shonim kiviyachol, and every vessel is holding a different light. So Gadi is saying, not just everything in the world is a vessel holding divine light, but the vessel is in Meshava is like the light. So the difference of the vessel is different of the light. That means every person you meet, every yid that you meet, kol yachid b'yachid, every individual has a unique light to savor, unique light to connect to Hashem with. Now this is the secret. You ready? This is the secret he's going to tell you psychologically. And so much of elevation is teaching people to get into the state and how to use the state and leverage the state. And on a very basic psychological level, if you meet a person and you look at their body, and God forbid you look at their body, but body means their psychology, how rich they are, how poor they are, how much I like them, how much I don't like them, what they're going to give me, what they're not going to give me. They just mean food or money or cars or clothing. I mean, whether they're going to validate me or they're not going to validate me, they're going to laugh at my jokes or not laugh at my jokes. When you connect to your soul, then you look at them, you don't see their body, you see their soul. And when you see their soul and you're struck by their light, you don't have any room for jealousy. You don't have any room for ego. Not how do I overcome my jealousy and ego, it's just what jealousy and ego. Jealousy means I see you and you have a great phone or watch or job, and I live in a physical world of limited resources. And if you have that, then I don't. But the spiritual world has infinite resources and infinite energy and infinite possibility. So there's nothing to be jealous of. There's no room in my consciousness for jealousy, for ego. Because all I am is a state of rapture, of connection to the light. We all know that experience. Let me clarify that. If you've been with us for a while, if you've had the spiritual experience, you can have fear, you can have ego, you can have lust, but you enter into the state and everything, everything melts away like wax and you go into that cosmic place. But what happens is we know you step out of that place, unless you knew what to do, and that all comes back. But what we at least see is in the place of revelation, of rapture, of light, there is no space. There is no place for animal desire. And therefore, if you're staring at light, if you're staring at goodness, if you're staring at soul, then that stuff just doesn't enter in the first place. And if you stare long enough, it starts to deplete and melt and eliminate that stuff in general. Because the more you see a world of goodness, what do I have to be jealous of? The more I see you shine, it just makes me shine. And competitive, jealous, ego, what are you talking about? So that's the secret he's telling us. How would it even come into your consciousness, rise up from the midah to the hirurim, from the heart to the imagery to the desires, to have even the taiva of this world, the person's in rapture, in love, in, forgive me for saying, but the Ramada does, in spiritual lust. My Maimonides says spiritual lust, like a man loves a woman for the pleasure he's gaining by seeing the goodness of the soul of every being, and every plant, and every animal, and every taste, and every human being, and the sky, and the sun, and the stars, and the moon, and the books of everything in the world. So you don't even have the opportunity to enter into lust, into ego, into fear, because you're getting so much tanug, so much pleasure from seeing divinity, everything. Ve'efsha Lezen, this is possible, this is so deep, and I'd love to speak about this for hours, but I know we want to move towards the experience. For Efshar Lezen, we have to come back and do this class just in theory. In Primal Chassidus, perhaps we'll do that. For Efshar Lezen, Ramzu Chazal, this is perhaps, you see, everything that the Tzadikei Emes of the Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov, everything they're saying, they're showing you, as Rav Nachman said explicitly, I'm coming to show you a new way, which is not at all a new way, it's really the old way. They weren't saying kids, Chassidus is new kids on the block, that's something new. They were saying this is exactly only what Chazal were talking about the whole time. So why is it new? The answer is new because it's forgotten. Person has a spiritual experience. Wow, there's God in the world. I never knew that. That's new. That's new. It's new for you. It's new for you. Nebuch. Some people discover God like they're the first person to ever find out in their life. They have to jam that in everyone's throats. Give God a lot of nachas. So what he says is, this is the secret. Here's a new way, which is exactly what Chazal is saying. The Maggid is teaching us, the Baal Shem Tov taught us, the Nachman taught us, Balatanya taught us, all the Tzaddikim taught us, for sure the Piazetzim taught us, reminded us 1,000 times that this is just the path of the prophets, the derech of the Nevi'im. That's all they're teaching over and over and over again, my friends. And this is what Chazal knew that we didn't. And therefore, the Gemara in Brachas, Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, Talmud Bavli says, and it's so deep, but I'll say it the kids are key. Ka'oilam hazeh, ha'oilam haba. Oh, I'm sorry. Lo. That's what they may say. Lo ka'oilam hazeh, ha'oilam haba. This world is not like the next world. This world means usually the physical life we live now, with the laws of nature, all the struggles we have. And the next world is Olam Haba, the world to come, of heaven, of spirituality. And Chazal say, wow, genius insight. Thanks, Chazal. This world is not like, I hope this world is not like, I hope this world is not like that, because if we work very hard in this world to get to the next world and it was just like this world, that would be a highly disappointing ending. like some of our Palestinian bummer friends we're about to find out, where they bought in, well, all your desires of this will be filled in the next world. I'm like, man, you sold out. You're more likely to get in this world, buddy. Look, ha'olam hazeh, ha'olam haba. But listen what they say. How is this world different from the next world? And this is so beautiful and so profound. It's such a deep statement of consciousness, and it radically just destroys the silly notions we have of what religion is saying, what Judaism is saying about this world and about heaven and the next world. It's just a shift of consciousness. The difference between this world and the difference in the next world is just a radical shift of consciousness. And all the language, sophisticated language used of heaven and earth, of the world to come in this world, the concept of Mashiach, these are all ways to explain global transformation of consciousness to be able to access the full human potential. The Das D'Chor. How? This is our sages from the Talmud now. There's no Chassidus. Listen to this. How is the world to come different from this world? Ha'olam haba, the world to come. Ein boy lo achila, there's no eating there. Lo shasiya, there's no drinking there. Lo priyavia, there's no sexual intimacy there. V'lo maso mata, no one has to make money in business, buying and selling there. V'lo kina, listen to these words again. There's no jealousy. Lo sinna, there's no hate. V'lo tachlis, there's no competition. Ela tzadikim yoshvim v'atraseihem b'risheihem. Benanim maziv eshchina shene'amar v'yachzu es ha'elakim v'yachlu v'yishtu. Now, first I'm going to tell you how people traditionally read it. And then I want to tell you how the Maggid wants us to read it. And when you read how the Maggid wants us to read it, you'll say that's actually psychologically extraordinary and transformational. And then you go, none of our sages ever thought of it the way people usually read it. They only held this in mind. The world to come is different from this world because there's no eating, there's no drinking, there's no sexuality, there's no business, there's no jealousy, no lust, no ego, etc. Except all the spiritual masters, all the souls that make it to the other side of the next world, they all sit with their crowns upon their head and get spiritual pleasure from the revelation of Hashem. So there's no physicality there. There's only spirituality there. It's one long Vipassana retreat that goes on infinitely. And now let me tell you how the Maggid, the Baal Shem Tov, and the Tzaddik Amos want you to read it. You know, there's a machlokes by the Rishonim that go way, way back. Is the world to come, is Shemayim a place of pure spirituality or a place of also physicality? When Mashiach comes, when one individual will come on the wave of our energy, of us developing our consciousness and returning ourselves as the human race to a deeper place, and Mashiach will be a catalyst, an energetic spiritual master who will be able to raise up the frequency of human consciousness. And that will create an awakening of souls around the world. Even dead souls will be able to turn because the souls will be able to re-enter the body because the physical realm of the physical world will be purified. And incredible miracles will be seen. And then we will enter into a place called Olam Haba. And there's a discussion, not according to Kabbalah, because everything's according to Kabbalah, but on just a pshat level, is the next world, the world to come, a physical world, or is it only a spiritual world? And while both sides have what to say, the deeper Sfarim say the following thing. Is it physical or is it spiritual? And the answer is yes. Yes. No. Is it physical or spiritual? Yes. What is the world to come according to Torah? It's a place of physicality, which is incandescent with spirituality. Just like in the Garden of Eden. Just when a person looked at Adam, he was made of nails, because when you looked at him, you saw transparency with his light of his soul shining out. When he looked at animals, he could see what their name was, what the soul was, because everything was radiance and expression. The physical world was just a wisp, a vessel to hold an incandescent, radiant light. What's the world to come going to be? Of course, it's not only spirituality, because that would miss the point. What is the point of us being here? To purify the physicality so that there's no difference between the physicality and spirituality. So Hashem can shine back in and be revealed, that the whole aretz, the whole physicality, the whole vessel will shine and radiate light. Havanta, you understand? So it will be a place of complete spirituality in the physicality. It will be in our bodies. Techiyas HaMesim means the soul comes back to the body. You can't say that's not Olam Haba. That is the point of Olam Haba. But the body will be electric with spirituality, and you'll be Lahavdil Elf Havdalas, Neo in the Matrix. You will only see that, and everyone will only see that. It'll be Matrix and Matrix sequels and merchandising forever. Rulers and sharpeners and apps and lower lane. So that's how he's reading this. Listen very carefully. This world is not like the next world, not because this world's physicality, the next world's spirituality. So now listen how he's reading it. Because this is what he's going to say in a second. I'm just talking now. There's not physical eating because you're going to be eating the sparks of God. And you can learn how to do it in this world, but you have to struggle to do it. You're just going to sing the letters and consuming the letters. The Chumash says, the Torah says explicitly, man does not live on bread alone, rather that which comes out and emanates from the mouth of God. The mouth of God is Malchus in the world of Atzilus. It's where Hashem emanates the letters into this world, and therefore you don't really get the energy from the food you eat. You get the energy from the spiritual energy within the food. And that's why there's a tradition with the tzaddikim that the more you overcome your desires and the more you eat with higher consciousness, the less food you would need to eat to be fulfilled. And the more desirous you are, the less spiritual consciousness you have, the more food you need to be fulfilled. And that's a very, very, very deep thing. That's what the spiritual masters say. They used to say about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he used to have one piece of chocolate a day. Baltaiva chocolate, what's that about, right? If it was really holy, you would have one piece of, I don't know, what are the vegetarians eat, one piece of lettuce a day. So what does it mean? Chocolate, because there's a tanug in chocolate, there's a pleasure. Because he's so connected to the spirituality, you want the pleasure. You want the pleasure, because the pleasure, I've told this story many times about Yitzhak Meir Morgenstern. He's actually a great tzaddik that lives today with tremendous spiritual energy. When you walk into the room, tremendous energetic consciousness that you feel. So I'm close with his Gabbai, and his Gabbai's assistant tells me stories. So he said there's one time that he was traveling with a Rebbe in America, and the Rebbe turned to him. They were at some banquet somewhere for a celebration of something, a holy banquet. And the Rebbe turned to him and said to him, the whole week we've been in a certain place in America. I don't want to insult anyone by saying it is. It's not the holiest place in the world, let's say. He said, I've lost all spiritual energetic connection. He said, the only time I felt something holy was when I was eating. And we're like, what? I was feeling holy, and the only time I did feel something was when I was eating. And that's the point. Because the more you engage in physicality, the more potent that physical is. That if a person could perceive it, it's so potent because, as the mystics say, because there's more spiritual energy contained in it. But it's in Kalim, it's in Levushim, and therefore we're pulled into it. So that's why he's saying the world to come is not like this world, because in the world to come there is eating, but it's not eating, right? So listen how he frames the word. In the world to come is different with this world. Why? There's not eating as we know it. He's going to say this explicitly now. Velosh says there's not drinking as we know it. There's not sexuality as we know it. But there's not business as we know it. There's not jealousy as we know it. There's not sin, anger, hate as we know it. There's not competition as we know it. The tzaddikim are sitting and getting pleasure from the ziv Shechina, from the revelation of Hashem, not instead of eating and drinking and sexuality. They're getting Nana, pleasure from the revelation of Hashem in the drinking, in the eating, in the sexuality. And this is what the mystics say, everyone knows this Torah. The tzaddikim yoshvim v'atrusayim burashayim, right? The crowns are in their head. Now we don't want to go, I'm holding myself back now. There's so much beautiful Kabbalah and Chassidus, but crowns in the head. What is a crown? A crown is something that is shaykh to you. It's connected to you, but it's part of you, but it's above you. That's a code word in the Kabbalah and Chassidus for Keta, for Ratzon, for Das Elyon. It's the part of your consciousness which is your higher soul, but you don't fully have access to it. Sometimes in a very high spiritual day, by great spiritual masters, sometimes you're given that gift and you launch beyond yourself. That's the Balatani's part of his mind that came into him, and suddenly he can see the letters everywhere. So it doesn't say the Tzaddikim are sitting in the world to come with their crowns on their head, because we already have in this world crowns on our head. It means what we are, B'nai Malachim. Yeah, we are children of kings and children of queens, all of us. But that means it's on our head. It goes in the hand. Birashayim. What does that mean? That higher part of consciousness comes down into them, that now when they eat, all they're eating and getting pleasure from is the Shekhinah within the food. All they're drinking, getting pleasure from, all the intimacy is only through the revelation. Do you see that unbelievable secret? The only difference between this world and the next world, this is also physical there, but that because our higher consciousness is now integrated into our being, then even our physical activities are now only full of spiritual revelation. And therefore, there is no desire for food. Because how do I get desire for food? I only get desire for food, you ready? When I'm looking at food. I only get desire for intimacy when I'm staring at a body. I only get desire for jealousy when I'm comparing my physical needs and haves and have-nots to their physical needs and have-nots. But when I'm staring at the soul, when I'm staring at the divinity, then there's not enough room for that. That's why that's not there in the world to come, because the higher consciousness is now integrated in the lower consciousness, and therefore they're only perceiving through spirituality. It's unbelievable. Now Chazal say this. It says, and there's different perushim on this in the Torah itself, in the Chumash itself, in Shmois, in Exodus itself. It says, and the people at Sinai, they saw God and they ate and they drank. They ate and they drank. They saw God and they ate and they drank. Now, there's many interpretations what that means. Was it a failure? Was it something good? But the spiritual masters come around and say, no. They saw God and they ate and they drank. If you read it properly, it means they saw God when they ate and they drank. That the physical experience is no different from the spiritual experience. That's because, if you know a Torah, as I said, Nasiv and Nishma, they received 2 crowns. Their consciousness opened up and they were on the level of true revelation. Is it making sense to anyone? You following me? Can you do it yet? When a person thinks that Hashem is Mesoivev Kol Almin, when Hashem surrounds the world, without going into the depth of it, there's 2 revelations of Hashem's light. There's His revelation within our experience, within our body, and there's a part of our mind which is higher consciousness. We go to the higher self. That means it's not really accessible in my normal consciousness. And so to everything in this world, this beautiful flat, this flower, this computer, this machine, everyone around us, we have within us the normal functioning part of our mind, but we also have a higher revelation. The Gemara says every blade of grass has one as well. If it didn't have that higher revelation, higher soul, it couldn't exist. So that what he then goes on to say here, when a person is constantly thinking that there is that high revelation within me, there is that higher soul, there's a higher soul within everything. I start looking at people thinking, I don't want to see your body, I don't want to see your money, I don't want to see your clothes, your fashion, I don't really want to see your physical beauty. I want to pierce through the externality to perceive the true spirituality. That's the Mesoivev Halomim. Then a person perceives the deeper reality. V'zehu v'atrasehim burashehim. That's what it means. The crowns are in the head. Az haim nanim. Then they get pleasure miziv shechina. When you can do that, then you start to receive this pleasure of the shechina within you. The pleasure of divine revelation. If I have to argue this one more time with a yid who's following every halacha and every chumrah, and is more knowledgeable in Torah than I'll ever be, and says to me, what's all the stuff you teach about getting pleasure from Avodas Hashem? Avodas Hashem, divine service, is all about Mesiras Nefesh. It's all about Mesiras Nefesh. It's all about struggle. It's all about suffering. You're telling people they're supposed to get pleasure from it? When a person says that to you, first of all, look at the neshama, and all the sina goes away, and all the pain goes away. Aleph, Ken Yiratsan. Second of all, you know that this person is the most miserable person you ever met. And if you tell him that things could be better than his miserable life, you run the risk of making him feel guilty that he made himself feel miserable for the last few years and thought that he was doing something holy by doing it. So you have to be careful with that. And people are so invested in their misery because they've now religiously justify that I have to be miserable because that's what made me holy, that they can't possibly bear to hear, because we're all fragile at heart, that perhaps there was another way to be holy. There were times of struggle, and avodas Hashem means struggle. There's times of sacrifice, and avodas Hashem means sacrifice, but you can't function in a normal, healthy way. You can't maintain your connection unless there's also pleasure. And absolutely, when you're doing it right, you can maintain that pleasure. God loves you. But this world is for work, and the world to come is ultimate pleasure. So now he comes to answer that and say, not only did you get reality wrong and conscious wrong, you also got Chazal wrong. Because they say, as the Baal Shem Tov says many times, listen very carefully, what does that mean? That they delight, they get delight, mean his anug havuchni hachias habori hashrechin b'chol makam. When you see and perceive Hashem in everything, you get delight and spiritual pleasure from experiencing the chias everywhere and everything all the time. And this is what the Mara said, you don't have to be Hasidic. It helps, you don't have to be Hasidic. Already from Tanakh, you will see your world to come in this world already. They already spoke about that it's possible to see the world to come in this world already. That means if you're doing avodas Hashem right, Tanag Elaki, spiritual pleasure, it should be what you're experiencing all the time. Or working towards it, or knowing how to access it. Doesn't mean there's not struggle, but the challenge of struggle is to be makabel yasurim ba'ava. What does it mean? That when challenges come at you, it doesn't mean, okay, I'll do it because that makes me religious, that's connected to God. It means to find the good, to find the love in the challenge, and therefore you get, and you can answer that. Yes, that is possible. To be able to see the world to come already in this world. That's what he's teaching. And therefore, if you understand everything he said so far, also in this world right now, right now, you can experience the pleasure of the world to come. Gan Eden is a code word for Das Elyon, for Ratzon, for that crown which comes within you, from seeing the spirituality in all things. Now you understand, in Gan Eden, all the physicality they were involved with was just for seeing it, perceiving it, experiencing it from a spiritual level. Eden means, what does Eden mean? It means pleasure. The garden of pleasure. It says the Gan Eden, and the river that flowed, the Nahar, that went Yotzim Eden to water the Gan. So without going into the Tikkun Zara says, we know the Gan Eden is Ratzon, is higher consciousness. It's the source of energy healing. It's where that Ratzon, that you open up your hands and the energy flows from your Ratzon, from the crown, from the higher consciousness that comes down into you. And the Nahar is that energy, is the river that flows into the Gan. Into the Gan is called Malchus. Malchus is the physical world, that the energy flows from the higher world all the way down to all the spheres, as the spheres into the lower world. And that experience means you're living between Chagan, you're going back to the Garden of Eden. That's all of Torah in mitzvahs, is to re-access the innate power of transformative spiritual consciousness that every single one of us has within us. That's the purpose of all of Torah and mitzvahs. That's all we were doing. It's not how you were taught in Sunday school. It's not how you were taught in Cheder. Baruch Hashem. And then we awaken, then we remember, we return. And then he says, canal. And now he's coming back to the first sentence. There was a tree of life within the garden. Listen what he says here. It's very cute. Here's a little chassidus for you. The tree of life. My friends, what is the tree of life? What's it? Eitza. Eitz also means, Eitza means advice. I'm giving you advice. It's the same word. Eitza means I'm giving you advice. Eitza Chaim, it's an advice to connect to Chaim. What's Chaim? Chaim means true life. Eitz Chaim Machzikim Boy. It's a tree of life to those who hold on to the spiritual energy within it. When you're connected to higher consciousness, you feel Chaim doesn't mean life, it means spiritual energy flooding through you. That light, that energy, here's a piece of advice of how to connect to that light on that energy on a consistent level, right? That you'll be, here's a piece of advice how to be consciously connected to higher consciousness, constantly feel that energy, that electricity, chayim, which is the root of the word chi. People think the chi, the energy, it's the same root, chayim. This is the advice of how to connect to that chi, that energy, and live with it and expand your heart with it constantly in life. How? You constantly remain within the gan. If you constantly see yourself within your gan, you constantly connect to the energy in all things, and you constantly see it, then you'll constantly receive energy and pleasure from all things. And all the fear and all the lust and the ego, they never bother you. They never impinge on your consciousness because you're having too much pleasure. Everybody knows when you're miserable, you eat chocolate ice cream. You don't need the Zohar to tell you. And the Kabbalistic payment is, why? Because when you're getting pleasure, you don't think about all that other annoying stuff. The problem is when you swallow the ice cream, then you have more. Then you swallow that and you have more. And now you're physically sick. And now you're physically sick and everything else swamps you. Because that's a clipper of saying, when I'm overwhelmed, there's some pleasure I'm supposed to run to. And we all seek pleasure. All addiction is not really addiction to the substance if you work with people. It's usually running away from pain or anxiety or fear. And they're trying a pleasure that removes that fear from me, but we're running to the wrong pleasure. If you were running to the Eitz Adas Tova Ra pleasure, running to the I love it, I binge, now I purge, and now I binge, and now I purge, that's the Eitz Adas Tova Ra, of pleasure with pain, duality, but I'm supposed to run to the transcendent pleasure, and there everything does wash away. And that pleasure is so good, I don't have to purge from it. If you want a piece of advice how to get back to the Gan, a Gan of Eden, of pleasure, of higher connection, of seeing reality in everything, this is how we do it. Questions? Is anybody watching out there? Are you guys getting any of this? Give me some 1 or 2 word response. What's that? How do we get to Tikkun Olam? How do we get to utilize this when there is running tremendous? There is. Did you notice that too? There's illness of it, and there's evil, and there's suffering. What's your name, ma'am? What's that? Rachel. You sure about that? Right. Okay. That's also a good name. So I want to use, in our generation, people like to use this word Tikkun Olam. Let me tell you something very important about Tikkun Olam. People have no idea what they're talking about. Let's plant trees. We're doing Tikkun Olam. You're doing Tikkun Forest, perhaps. When I open up my window, I look into the Jerusalem forest. I personally appreciate that very much. Tikkun Olam. The things that people do today in the name of Tikkun Olam is outrageous. If you want to fix the world, then you have to understand what's wrong with the world. I support people that want to care about the environment. I support recycling. But I don't care who you are, that's not Tikkun Olam. I understand the translation is to fix the world, and environmentally the world's in trouble. I've got nothing against fixing the environment. That if it's in trouble, good, let's do that. Excellent. It's not Tikkun Olam. If you want to fix the world, you have to know what's wrong with the world. What's wrong with the world? Donald Trump. Okay, before Donald Trump, Barack Obama. Okay, before Trump and Obama, we were all living in the Garden of Eden. I totally appreciate that. But what's objectively wrong with the world? It's the ISIS, the Palestinians. Okay, before ISIS, okay, it was the Crusades. Okay, before that, go all the way back. What's wrong with the world is one thing. It's one thing. It's not the internet. It's not Tel Aviv. It's not, we're not learning enough, but Ian. Tikkun Olam literally translates, the word for the world is Olam, comes from the 3-letter root Ne'elem, Elem, which means hidden. When we lost our crowns, When we lost our consciousness, I started looking at the world and seeing physicality. Why, as human beings, do we destroy the physical nature that we live in? It's because we don't see it energetic, soulful force. We see it as resources that I can use to please my desires. If you saw the divinity within the cosmos, within the physical world, within nature, you wouldn't abuse it for your own desires. You'd be afraid to touch it because of its awesomeness. You would get the halachas bal tashchis of not destroying anything in any way unless we need it for absolutely or good completely, because I have incredible awe and respect for the physical. You would never use or take advantage of anyone because you constantly see the good within people. There'd be no Trump, there'd be no Obama, there'd be no politics, there'd be no ISIS, because everything would be good and loving and peace and harmony, because all you're seeing and all you're perceiving is revelation. Olam comes from the three-letter root. World comes from the three-letter root. Hiddenness, it literally translates as to fix the hiddenness. That's exactly what we've been talking. Because we entered into the world of lust, of fear, of doubt, of ego, of me versus you, of limited resources, if I have and you don't have, if I want because I need, that's where everything collapses. Psychological collapse, global collapse, economical collapse, sociological collapse, even the collapse of religion. It's because we see even religion through external forms, as Rav Kook discusses. The root of all our problems is we fell out of the Garden of Eden. That's why the Torah begins with that subject. So how do we fix the world? How do we fix the world? Plant a tree, give some money to charity, go on a march to the streets with some big parade, declare everyone's wrong except for me about this particular thing. Down with the Democrats, no, down with the Republicans, down with ISIS, down with who's, you knock off one bad guy, the next bad guy comes up. Everyone knows that. You open your eyes is how you fix the world. You start to elevate your consciousness and see divinity in all things, and you teach others to elevate their consciousness and see divinity in all things. You are fixing the hiddenness because there is no longer hiddenness. When there's revelation, there's no problems left in the world. That's not spiritually ideal. I'm not being idealistic or over-idealistic. It's the only actual solution. Because every other ism that pops up to fix the world ends up being from the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra, comes up strong, it does sound the tikkun, and then it just falls back into ego in the other direction. And every revolution that starts good, and some of them I could list today, things that we all jump on the bandwagon and say, this is wonderful, it's finally fixing, this is finally making society better, and we're finally taking down those bad people. And you see, and it just tips over the other side, becomes extremist in the other direction. Tikkun Olam, it says, and all the Tzaddikim know, that just like Hashem made an Olam Gadol, a bigger world, that we are called an Olam Katan, a smaller world. Everything that exists in the world as a whole exists within us as individuals. So when you do that, when you do Tikkun Olam, you have to fix yourself. Just like the world has an infinite God and a physical lower world, right? And the purpose of us, Yidden in the world, is to bring reveal God in the physical world. So the Tikkun Olam, Olam Katan is us, is what? I have an infinite soul of infinite divinity. Not I, Daniel Katz. I is an I, and Rachel is in Rachel, and Gadi is in Gadi, right? We all have that. But my soul is hidden within me. I am an Olam Katan. I'm not just a small world. I am a small hiddenness. You are a small hiddenness. And how do you fix the Olam Gadol? You fix the Olam Katan. How do you fix the big hiddenness? You blame them. It's the men's fault. It's the women's fault. It's the... Right? Who are we going to blame today? Religious, it's the secular fault, it's the right. No, you fix the world, you fix your hiddenness, you reveal it. It's a trick of consciousness, which has a ripple effect. So let's learn how to do it. We're going to start tonight. We have just over half an hour left with a couple of introductory exercises. Next week, we're going to then dive in to the more cosmic exercises. I didn't know how long tonight was going to go, but I think we've set an extraordinary foundation to build on with all the axioms. So tonight, I want to give you a couple of exercises we're going to do to begin to feel it, to begin to sense it. Some people will be able to get there, not everyone will. And you can practice a couple of exercises for 5 minutes. And next week, what I'm going to do is do an exercise where I turn on very powerfully Neshama, and then you're going to go back and do this exercise again, and you'll see something extraordinary happens for most of you. And I want to start straight away at the beginning of next week, because then what we're going to try and do is maintain it as long as possible during the session. And then the deeper you get into it, the more it expands and the more it opens. It's a very, very deep thing. So tonight I want to do a few exercises just to feel out the shift. Because I'm going to sum this up. I'll stop for questions, and then we're going to begin a couple of basic exercises. What he said, super reductionistic now. The Tavuna, just what's the takeaway that we can now apply into our life? If you get into a state of Dveikus, of higher spiritual connection, and from that higher spiritual connection, you feel that love and you feel that awe. That means it's not just Dveikus in my higher consciousness, I'm bringing that down to my sensory level, that my body is engaged in that as well. And then you start looking at things and you start seeing the makif within it, the soivev within it. You start looking at things and start thinking, this is also Hashem. And the shape of that body is also Hashem. And the color of their hair and their tone of voice is also Hashem. And if you know a little Chassidus and Kabbalah, you can start thinking, well, that's so of a guf, that's Selam Elakim. You can start thinking of the higher voice, the lower voice, the song. What is the voice? The voice of the Shina speaking, right? And you can start thinking, if you don't even know that, you can just not think about anything and just be happy. Just Sameach B'chalki, just my happy, whatever that is there. And you'll see, you start to experience that. On a highly reductionistic level, you have to know how to get to the Dveikus. Then you have to know how to calm everything. You have to know how to bring in positive emotional, elevated emotional states. And then what's very, very interesting, what's fascinating, and then you have to learn how to look at something without engaging your intellect in it. Your intellect, I'm sorry to offend anybody that thinks Judaism is a completely intellectual religion. That's also idol worship. Someone came up to me today, said, "I'm a rabbi, I hope Baruch Hashem he's learned." And he said to me in Yeshiva, we're both learning, he says, he knew I was into the Kabbalah, he had this funny attitude. He was like, you know, all this Kabbalah stuff you teach? I don't know Kabbalah. I know a little Chassidus. My friends who have Achmanas and teach me Kabbalah, he said, you know all that Kabbalah you teach? He said, Kabbalah is like intellectual at the end of the day, right? It's the systems that you can understand, right? Right? I love that, right? Tell me, right? Validate it, right? Don't threaten me, right? Right, I'm not threatening you. Right. Let's have a beer. Good. I just looked at it and said, right. Because you're really telling me, you're not asking me. I just said there's a question mark, but it's really a statement, right? Sometimes statements have question marks, right? The answer is Kabbalah is an extraordinary intellectual map, which is a launch point into extraordinary spiritual experience. That's what that is. And there's something which is called Segula Dik or Hasaga Dik, which means when you approach the end of the map and the pieces don't quite come together, you have to be in a higher state to experience it they do. And the power, the energetic power of learning it, if your heart is open, takes you to that place. And therefore people who are locked in their intellect only just can't quite get it. And therefore when you get it, you go, that's because you're being emotional. But they don't realize not being intellectual doesn't always mean being emotional. Sometimes it means being super intellectual. That your intellect reaches a critical mass and catalyzes to a place of higher and deeper understanding and awareness. Speak to anyone who's ever had a near-death experience and all the chaos of their life and all the things that don't make sense, they get to that place and suddenly everything catalyzes and come together and they see from a higher place. That seeing from a higher place is called Das Elyon, because Das Elyon translates as a higher knowledge, a higher understanding. But as Rav Nachman would say, it's understanding which is so high, so deep, that the intellectual brain, that it can't fire off enough synapses fast enough to hold that data. But when you're up there and you come back down, then you get how it connects. So is that intellect? Yeah. And something deeper. Most people have never been to that place. They basically see all the reality as intellect or emotions. Intellect? It's not intellect, you're being emotional. Women get that a lot, right? So sometimes women aren't being intellectual because they're being emotional. But sometimes we're not being intellectual, like Avram Avinu and Sarah Mena. Sarah, it's because she's being super intellectual. And Hashem basically said to Avraham, be quiet and listen to your wife. And he's not saying because you have to just accept her emotionality. He's explicitly because her power of prophecy means higher level intellectual understanding, super rational understanding, not lower. And that also comes in there as well. So the power of woman comes up in our generation, the power of prophecy comes up in our generation, the power of intuitive knowledge comes up in our generation. These are not coincidences. Before we begin, a few practical warm-up exercises tonight. Questions? Yes. Martin, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying that if you can combine the intellect with the emotions together, you can reach a super intellect that allows you to access and understand Kabbalah and
separate from what we're saying tonight, the learning of Kabbalah has to be done with heart, with Av and Yira, he just said that, with intellect, and also spiritual sensitivity. And then when you're learning, there's an experience when you kind of launch off the page. It's called Hasagas, when you start to see everything kind of connect. Lahavdil Elf Havdalas, I just want to use these things as references. I'm not recommending people that take LSD. They kind of say they have this kind of feeling where they see how it all comes together and it's all weaving, it's all making sense. So you don't need to have LSD to do that. That's just part of the human consciousness. I'm not negating. I'm just saying that's a drug to show you artificially how to get there. I know drug means you can get to a place artificially, but there's sometimes risk and consequence to that. I'm not coming against, I'm just talking that out. But a person that learns Chassidus Kabbalah with Av and Yira, with Devekus, with Kedusha and Tahara, they experience that as a reality. I'm not talking theory. Good people you know do that. Any other questions? Anything I've said for the last hour and a half? Is it possible to feel it in davening? Through davening, absolutely. Davening and learning is the access point. That's exactly what he said. He started by saying when davening. So learning in elevation, I think in level 3 in elevation, no, level 2 in elevation. So we talk about learning is the access point because true Torah learning, even in Chazal, when Chazal say Talmud Chacham, the Talmud Chacham, the lashon of Chazal uses Talmud Chacham do not mean like a Talmud Chacham like sometimes you know Talmud Chacham today. Wow, he knows all of Shas, all the Gemara by heart. Amazing Talmud Chacham. But Chazal uses Talmud Chacham, you see it many, many times. They're talking about a master of super consciousness. According to Chazal, they could, Techiyas Amesim, they could raise up the dead. They had supernatural powers. The Talmud Chacham meant that their consciousness was married to the Torah in a way that the Torah elevated and transformed them on a level of head, mind, body, soul. Right? And the entrance point to that was davening and learning. When a yin knows how to learn, it's an energetically transformational thing. If I don't learn in the morning, every morning, I'm just a very kind of normal human being. I am a normal human being, but I'm very kind of human being, right? And when I down properly and I learn properly in the morning and I have that Seder, I feel it open up. And the reason I do that is because that's what the Srams say to do explicitly. And there's certain books that allow that consciousness to be opened. You're supposed to use learning as a tool to access deeper consciousness. To even think that it's just an intellectual pursuit is a nonsensical thing that's kind of risen up recently. In thousands of years of our heritage, it's really just an intellectual thing. That we learn Daf Yomi. Baruch Hashem, we learn Daf Yomi, a wonderful thing, but we learn it just to hear a few ideas each day before I went off to work. It's something that never was. And then that's all it is, with no connection, with no sense. I mean, it was as we were falling further and further into exile. But it never was in the times when we were connected people, transformative people, or transcendent people. Any other questions of what we said so far, just to clarify? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to understand how you see Hashem's love in the pain.
How we see Hashem's love in
the pain.
In the pain? Yeah. That's a very female question, which is wonderful. And it's more than what we can do in 1 second now. But you should know that the pain is a resistance to Hashem, and the capacity to resist Hashem is also from Hashem. It's enough to confuse you. Let's move on. So Rome wasn't built in a day. If it was, it wouldn't matter anyway, because what's Rome? But things that matter take time. And once you build them, they last. That was just enough to distract you. Let's move on. I want everyone to put everything out of their hands. I want you to sit up straight in your chairs. I want you to 120% make sure that your cell phone is off. For those watching live online on Facebook, we have this fancy new Zoom system, which is costing me $50 a month. If anyone would like to make a donation of $50 a month, so I don't have to go further into credit card debt for all the other thousands of dollars we're doing for Elevation. Great, it's appreciated. But besides that, I actually can't interact with you in real time because the Zoom working on Facebook has a kind of 20-second delay or something. So that's why I'm not talking to you. It's not because I'm rude. I am rude, but that's not the proof of it. It's simply because I'd be waiting around a long time for you to respond. Could be because you're rude and you're just not responding, but I won't go there now. Okay. Let's begin with the first level of Hachana. Now, if you've done this preparation with us before, all we're going to do right now is I'm going to talk you the Hachana, which is a 4 or 5 step meditation and preparation, and just play with it. If you've done it before, you know how to do this, and it's fun, you enter it. If you haven't done it before, it usually helps if you have a bit of an introduction, but you know what? You're going to be perfectly great without it. Just going to test it out. You're not looking for cosmic experience. And whatever happens at the end, it doesn't matter because I'm going to do something different today, take you in a different direction. Okay? The key of what we're going to experiment tonight, we're not going to enter into a very deep place tonight. Today we needed an explanation. Hands up if you think you can come next week and you want to do the full experience next week. Let's see those hands. Okay, so the majority of the room. So the key thing, what I want you to be mindful of, what we're going to explore experientially right now, is how is it that I learned to see the spirituality in everything? What was his advice? Let's just understand the mechanism at play here. I look around and I say, everything is full of revelation. There is nowhere that does not have revelation. But what did he say that I have to do before I begin to think that way? What did he say I have to do? What's that? Anybody pick that up? What did he say? It's pretty bullshit. You have to go into the Vegas before that. Ideally with prayer or ideally with learning. But the Vegas is the Vegas. I want to tell you a deeper understanding of this, and it's just basic, the thing we said. When I look at this plant in front of me right now, I see a plant. I can see, look, it's a bit torn here. The kids were running against it. I can say, oh, it's green, it's beautiful, it fills the room. I can see nice things about it. I can see unnice things about it. If I look at a person, if I say, wow, I appreciate this thing. If I look at them, I'm feeling annoyed or frustrated. I say, oh, there's that person again, right? So you see what's going on here. It's not for today's session, but it should be obvious to you in life. What you see says more about where you are than what is there. Someone posted that on Facebook. What you see says more about where you are than what is there. Where you are angry or sad, high or low, frustrated or loving. And therefore, what he's telling you is a very deep idea. How do you learn to see the divinity in all things? You have to access the divinity within you. When you are in a place where you have divine energy coming in you, then you're tuned in to the frequency of light, of Chiyas, the Eitz HaChaim. And therefore, when you look at something, what do you see? Then you tell yourself as you look at that, oh, and then you see the spirituality. So one of the basic rules of psychology and the basic rules of relationship, for sure you will never be married happily until you understand this rule, not just understand it, but understand it, is that when you're looking at that person, the only reason you're seeing those things that you're seeing the person is because how you're sensing yourself right now. We talk about that a lot in elevation, especially elevation 3, 4, and 5. So what I want to do is illustrate that a little right now. I want to open you up a little bit right now and just what we can in a few minutes. I want you to get an experience of just feeling that shift and feeling that you can control that shift. And then next week, we're going to go straight to the source and bring in a lot of light and energy. Then we're going to turn to things and see a lot of light and energy. But it takes a little time to build you up there, but today we have to build the foundation. So here we go. Everyone close their eyes. But everything's out of your hands. If you're doing this at home, I dare you to close the door to create a little quiet space for yourself. You need to pause the video, pause the audio to do that. Turn off your phone. It's very hard to do when you're at home. For practical, psychological reasons, there's so much distractions. For energetic reasons, you haven't taken yourself out of the environment. You're still connected energetically in your consciousness to your das is caches to a lot of distracted negative things. When you come into a holy space, to a classroom, together where we're all here with a clearer will, the group energy builds on that and catalyzes that, focuses us. That's something you can and are supposed to leverage. That's why we pray in a minyan, we pray in a quorum, in a group of people. But we'll all do right now the best we can with where we're at. We're going to begin the first stage of the elevation Hochana. It's very, very simple. You can all do this. We're going to breathe in cycles of 5. We're going to exhale completely as I count 5. We're going to hold our breath for the number of 5. Then we're going to inhale for the count of 5. Then we're going to hold that for 5 and exhale for 5 over and again. If you find it's hard to hold your breath for so long, then don't hold your breath and just take a deep breath instead. Hashem still loves you and it'll still have the same effect. Okay, right now, take a little inhale. Great, and now breathe out slowly and deeply. Go all the way out completely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All the way out and hold it. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. And now in, very deeply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wonderful. And hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale. Relax your shoulders, relax your body. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. Relaxed. Relax your body. 3, 4, 5. And inhale. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. You're doing great. Great. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale. Wonderful. Wonderful. Hold it. Hold it. Hold it. Now come back to normal breathing. You're doing totally great. Whatever you're up to is fine. It's going to totally work for you. Whether you feel it's working or not working, this will work right now. We're going to do the ladder, the Sulam Ha'aliyah, the ladder of ascent. If you know how to do this exercise, beautiful, begin, count to 10. If you get to 10 already, go higher. The ladder is a bigger ladder than you ever imagined. If you haven't done this exercise with us before, this is very simple. We're going to climb the ladder of Jacob, which is the bottom of the ladder is on the floor, and the top of the ladder goes up to the highest spiritual world, the highest level of your consciousness. The top of the ladder is full of light and unity, of infinite love, of infinite acceptance, of infinite compassion, of infinite peace, of infinite bliss, of being Nana Maziva Shechina, of feeling Hashem's infinite light. That's at the top. That is a 10-rung ladder, and we're at the bottom. So what I want you to simply to do is count each rung 3 times, and then imagine rising up to the next rung. So what it does is basically goes, you just count gently and slowly with love and patience. 1, 1, 1. Then you just imagine yourself taking a short step up, just rising up 1 level. Then you just go 2, 2, 2. You just imagine, experience yourself raising up to another level. Then you go 3. Now what you do is, as you're doing that, every level you take up, you just imagine everything else melting away, releasing away, and stepping a little bit more towards the light and love, feelings of peace and connection. Light and love and peace and connection. You can visualize the lights getting richer and stronger. If that works for you, if it doesn't, just count the numbers and just elevate up. Count the next numbers and elevate up. It's the easiest thing to do in the world. Start at 1 now. When you get to 10, you're stepping into infinite light and love, peace and connection. Allow yourself to feel it. And if you get there already, then go higher to 11. Begin that process now. No expectations, no needs. No magic has to happen. Just keep counting and going higher and higher, deeper and deeper. Begin that process now. Allow yourself to feel that light and love. Allow everything just to gently fall away. Leave it below. Leave it behind. The higher you go, the more calm you feel, the more peace you feel. If you like to use your imagination, see the light, feel it. But don't need it or expect it. That stuff doesn't work for you. Just count and go higher. Count and rise higher. Wonderful. Let's do Hiskashas. Play with us if you haven't done this before. On the count of 3, we want to use our minds to connect to everyone in the room. We want to connect to their neshamas, their souls. In our bodies, we are separate. In our souls, we are one. That may sound airy-fairy to you. It may sound weird. What we're going to do is just connect to our souls right now, to everyone in the room. We're going to bind together. This is how you do it. It's very simple. I'm going to count to 3. When I count to 3, simply choose and believe that you're connected to everyone in the room. At that moment, you become open to receiving Shef and Chias, light and energy from them, and sharing your light and energy with them. Choose it and believe it, which I want to be connected. I am. That's it. And at that moment, you can open up your hands and just receive any clarity of connection feeling that comes to you. The less you think about this, the better. You're right, it doesn't make sense to your intellect exactly. Let's see what sense it makes to our soul. I want to connect to these wonderful souls, these searching souls, these seeking souls, these in the room and everyone else watching online. We're just going to infinitely be connected and get the blessing to that connection on the count of 3. Choose it and believe it. 1, 2, 3. Let's strengthen that and make it even stronger on the count of 3. Choose it and believe it. I choose that I am, and I absolutely believe that I am with complete conviction. 1, 2, 3. Nod your head if you can feel that a little. Allow yourself to receive it. Allow yourself to be open to it. On the count of 3, choose that the energy should get stronger. Turn to Hashem right now and say, please, can I feel that love and light and energy even stronger? He wants to give it to you. More than you can imagine, he wants you to experience that. It's going to absolutely get stronger on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Choose and believe it. Not if it got stronger. Choose now to share it with everyone else in the room. Just share it, just shine it. See the light moving around us all. And bring into light everybody watching around the world, everyone with us. Their light comes to us, ours goes to them. Everyone watching now in the present, anyone that watches this video from beginning to end of the video, this light will become available to them. See it coming into the room, pouring into us. Nod your head if you feel more open and more connected right now. Okay. Right now, I want you to be aware with your eyes closed of your right hand. I want you to imagine looking at your right hand right now. How does it feel to have a right hand right now? It's a weight, some sensation there. Wiggle the fingers. I want you to realize right now as you're feeling your hand, that hand and every molecule, every atom in that hand is being created willfully by Hashem right now. Hashem adores your hand. This infinite being is going to bring it into creation. Every cell is being electrified with light. And they're all working together in perfect harmony, bound together. There's the light coming into that hand through your consciousness, but just through every molecule, every atom itself. It's full of light and getting lighter and brighter. I want you to move it. I want you to think of the miracle that it moves, but all the atoms stay together. How remarkable that is. See, visualize light coming into it through your consciousness down your arm. Think what that hand can do, what it can reach out and do in the world. It can give charity to someone that needs it. You can embrace and give a hug to someone that needs it. You can do mitzvahs, kiss a mezuzah if it needs it. You can write holy words if it needs to. You can pick up something good in its arms if it needs to. Hashem chose this hand, your hand, these cells, your cells, in this form, in these fingers for a reason. The 5 levels of the soul, the 5 fingers, the exact amount of joints, everything there is conscious and willful, full of lessons and love. Say yes if you can feel the positive energy coming into your hand right now. Yes. Say yes louder if you can. Yes. Say it even louder if you can. Yes. Now, as you're doing that, I want you to think how lame your left hand is. Left is always inferior. Even if you're left-handed, you're obviously not as good as right-handed people. I want you to feel it's heavy, it's physical, it's a bunch of blood and bone in there. It's clumsy. Goes to catch a ball, can hardly catch it. Imagine how pathetic the left hand feels when it tries to write. Has no ability at all. It's just flesh and bone. It gets cuts, it gets marks. That's what hands get, cuts and marks. They shrivel up, get old and bony. Sometimes you get ingrown nails in the left hand. Can you feel how the energy is sucked out of that right now? Can you feel it feels heavy or dead, disempowered? Say yes if you can. Yes. Say it louder if you can. Yes. Focus on your right hand. That's the good hand. That's the good hand. That is bright. That is divine. Do you see how what we perceive is based on the inner connection we feel and then the beliefs that we have about that thing? Do you feel right now that not only is that what you perceive, that it actually affects the object itself? That's pretty interesting, right? Now, slowly being aware of the incredible light of the right hand of God, the expression of love, of compassion right now. What I'm asking you to do very, very simply, my friends, is pick up your pathetic left hand and allow it to be held and embraced in the right hand. And allow the light to shine in. And allow the left hand to feel that light and love. Of course, we were joking in a very cruel way. The left hand is so full of light because they're just, left and right are both created right now by the same God. Chesed and Gevurah are both revelations of Hashem's unity. Every molecule in the left hand is equally as electric, is equally human and beautiful and holy and purposeful. Hashem needs us to have a left hand and right hand. We need a side of love and a side of strength. And the best is when 2 hands come together, love and strength together. Then we have unity, then we have shleimus, we have shalom. Say yes if you can feel the light and the energy come to the left hand right now. Yes. Say it loudly if you can. Yes. Okay. Now feel both hands are equally as empowered to give and receive light. Feel that your whole life is for your hands. to interface with reality, to extend into reality, to change, to transform, to elevate, to give, to gift, to push and pull, to have love, to have awe, to have strength, to have compassion. Wiggle those fingers and know that even the will to wiggle the fingers is coming from Hashem. You couldn't have willed that without Hashem. That movement is divinely guided through you. That movement is electric right now. Those cells are moving together in sync right now. The capacity to choose movement is divine. On the count of 3, I want you to open your eyes and stare at your right hand. 1, 2, 3. Now think how amazing that thing is. Look how strangely it's structured. Imagine that there are things even in Kabbalah that you know a person's whole life and soul by what's in the palm of their hand. That's in Kabbalah as well. How many secrets are in this thing? The Kabbalists map out the joints and say the joints are secrets to who we are. Think about the energy, feel the love and the power you have in your hand. Think how you can change the world, change those around you with the power of your actions, which are embodied in your hand. Hands are an expression of your higher consciousness, and therefore they're expressions of Hashem's consciousness. On the count of 3, I'm going to ask everyone to stand up. Don't think about this, but just do it. 1, 2, 3. On the count of 3, I'm going to ask all the women to turn towards the center of the room, just towards the center of the women. And all the men to turn to the center of their room, the center of the men. 1, 2, 3. I want you to choose someone in the room to look at, but not someone looking at you. Someone in the room to look at, but not someone looking to you. And as you look at that person right now, I'm going to look at them like they're a divine gift given by God into the world. You can be aware of how tall they are, how short they are, how dark or light their hair, the color of their skin, their eyes. Technically, are they attractive or unattractive? All things are just that detailed bits and piece information. Do you know what the person has been through in life? Do you know of their pain, their suffering, of their joy, of their celebrations? Can you imagine that within that being right now is actually a revelation of God? The Olam Katan, a hidden revelation. Can you imagine, as great as all the masters were, Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rachel, Leah, Rivka. There's never been this soul revealed in this world. There's a light that the whole world needs from that person. Every look on their face, the shape of their nose, their chin, their cheek, is exactly how Hashem not just wanted it, but wants it right now. Do you know how much yearning is in that person? How much fear is in that person? How much hope is in that person? Do you know how deeply that person wishes that they were seen and known? You do know, because that's what you want too. How much do we feel there's something great within us? We can't quite express it. We can't quite get it out. Just as you yearn to be loved, to be known, to be expressed, to be seen, so too they yearn to be loved, to be known, to be expressed, to be seen. Feel their greatness. On the count of 3, I want you to choose and believe that you are completely connected to their soul, that you know them and love them. Give them that gift. Even if you think, but I don't know them and love them, pretend that you do for 1 second and allow the light of their soul to be radiant before you. You don't need to see anything different. Just know that you're connected to their soul. That you can sense a little of what they sense and feel a little what they feel and know a little what they know. And if you don't, who cares? Just will love towards them. Choose to connect them on the count of 3. There's a wonderful shift happening in the room. Let's try it right now on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Choose and believe you're connected to them now. Say yes if you can feel more connected to them now. Yes. Say yes louder if you were. Yes. Okay, let's connect even more. 1, 2, 3. I also want to expand. If we expand our Dvaikas, you'll expand your love and connection to them. On the count of 3, connect to everyone else in this room in the same way. 1, 2, 3. Choose and believe it. Go. In the count of 3 right now, connect to everyone else watching online, now and present and in the future. And give to them and receive to them. Let's feel, expand that energy. 1, 2, 3, now. In the count of 3 right now, connect to Hashem and increase the light for all of us we are connected to. Increase the das, be mamshech amuna, mamshech or mamshech dvaikas. Draw in more light just by choosing. Hashem wants to pour it on us. 1, 2, 3, choose and believe it now. Say yes if you can feel that more. Okay, now with that light, look back at that person and tell yourself, this is a supernatural soul in this tiny little body, but even the body itself is struggling, is searching for that light that is so beautiful, that is so extraordinary. Oy, their pain, oy, their journey, lifetime after lifetime, Gilgal after Gilgal, to get to where they are today. The small things that are distracting them, but the great soul that is searching to pierce through, yearn for goodness for them. See the light expand within them. Feel good and love. Give them an ayin tav. Find goodness within them. Any thoughts or feelings that may pop into your head about their life, just accept it and turn it to a prayer for good. Tell Hashem right now if there's anything I can feel that I could heal for them. Any thought or imagery that comes to me, I just yearn for their good. Pray for their good. See light come to resolve their good. You're doing wonderful. Just enjoy that. Keep saying, this whole person is full of Hashem's revelation. There's no part of their being, there's no part of their body, there's no part of their face. Whether you think it's attractive or unattractive, whether it fits something stupid that someone in Paris or Hollywood told us, I am now seeing with the eyes of God. There is nothing which is not chosen. There's nothing which is not gorgeous. There's nothing which is not holy. Look at them and see that and know that with your physical eyes. Elevate your eyes and transform your eyes so even they see it right now. I'm giving everyone 30 seconds right now on the count of 3 to extremely slowly look around the room to other people, to other objects. Choose another object and stare at it with this thought process. I see a light. That light is the power of Hashem's light in the world. I see a tile on the floor. That must be Hashem showing there's a floor, a ground in the world. Take some time right now. Don't turn around the room everywhere. Find one thing and see the light in it. Tell yourself that, but don't turn it completely intellectual. Keep focusing on the feeling and the light and the love. Turn your body around the room and find something totally new to look at. When you're ready, you can take a deep breath and have a seat. Hands up if that was an interesting experience for you. Hands up if you felt, and I don't know what this means either, that you could somehow feel or sense or connect or see light in another person in some way. Okay, that's almost everybody. Hands up if it's interesting to see, thinking about your hand in a divine way changes how you perceive the hand, but it also changes how the hand feels itself physically. Isn't that interesting? Hands, but even when you look to physical objects after you did that, you could feel something weird or spiritual within them. Hands up as well. You're all weird people. You see a little of what the Maggid message is teaching us? Now, when we do the full elevation seminar, we maintain that state for a few hours. One of my favorite lines that a very holy woman said, the PhD, stood up and she said, in tears, anyone who was there remembers, she said, I just stared at a garbage bin for 2 hours. And it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And in my heart, I said, I can quit now as a rabbi. That doesn't bring Mashiach. Before we end, would anyone just care to share a little of their experience, what that was like? To give expression to that sense, to find your voice to express it. I know you don't want to, I know it's easier not to, but it's a tremendous gift to talk that out. So we hear that we can experience it together. Rather than my voice, to hear your voice. What was that like for you? Yes, what's your... What's that?
You were giving me instructions and I just didn't care what you were saying. And so you said, feel your hand. I said, I can't feel my hand. I don't know what you're talking about. And then you told us to stand up. And I thought, what? I couldn't get up. So you were just talking and I just... What
were you experiencing in there?
It just felt well, I don't know. It just felt good.
Felt good. That's the word we were waiting for.
I don't know what you were saying.
Right. It was like felt like light or peace or connected or something like that.
Just warm. It was very weird.
It's very weird. It's the beginning of the Vekas.
I was trying to do what you were saying, and I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Okay. So that's a very interesting place. That's the beginning of the Vekas. You can get to such a deep place of connection. You don't want to do a stupid exercise that the rabbi's telling you to do. You want to be nan and ziva shchina. That's okay. So I'm personally very insulted. I'm not having you back in my house. The essence of the whole exercise is just to hear me talking, really. That's just the practice of Judaism. I'll get over myself, but I want you to keep practicing. That's a very, very interesting phenomenon. Anyone else care to share? I know you can do this. We do this every seminar, but somehow we haven't cracked in this room. Who can share a little of what the experience is like? It's a lot of tears in there, a lot of interesting things. It's interesting. Yes.
The person that I was looking at, first I was looking at two people, just as you told me so quickly. And,
right.
But then I saw that one person looked sad. And I thought she needed to feel all the things that you want to express. So I really sent her as much love and as much light. And I saw it within her so deeply.
Saw it within her so deeply. Right.
You know,
and if you felt unusual love for that person that you chose, have you felt like a spiritual connection to that person you chose? Okay, so that's quite phenomenal. Now, you know all those other people that you don't feel that love for? That's just because they're idiots. But what I did tonight was just choose all the nice spiritual people to bring into the room. So what if you turned to those people and saw them with those eyes? The reason you don't see that light in them, because that light is in them, because Malach Halah, it's kavodo. It's not because they're such idiots, it's not there. There's nowhere it isn't. It's because their idiocy triggers my stuff, and when my stuff is there, my devekus goes down. When my devekus goes down, and I'm staring at their idiocy, their problems, their fears, the challenges, their ego. But you could access devekus, and you could look at them with those eyes. And I'm not even going into tonight, something we explored a little last week in Elevation, we go very deeply into, that Rav Nachman says, and all of our sages say, that if you look at them with holy eyes and see the good within them, that it actually shifts their consciousness, that they actually become good. But if you look at the idiot and call him an idiot, and you actually trap him in being a state of an idiot. Rachel, what tears to your eyes when we said that?
I learned that with Nachman quite a few years ago. I wanted to do that with someone very close to my life.
You're right.
I have 9 children and my 7th son and my 7th child. young man went through some very difficult times when he was 18 and took a bunch of psychedelic drugs. He was a mentor and this and that. Completely broke his brain. And so he's now in this world, he's considered, I guess, paranoid, schizophrenic, whatever. Yesterday he was Buddha, today he's God Almighty, he's Admarisha, he's every little bit of Torah and Kabbalah, and there's also a lot of anger and evil, and there's like no cure, there's no help, there's no harvest. It's been going on for the last 13 years. And it's just like a movie, like you said, say Matrix, they're in like this bizarre movie, like Twilight Zone. And there's so much Hester upon him, and I'm trying to find a way, to daven for him and to him and believe it, and not only for him, but anyone who is suffering it. And trying to use tefillah as a refuah. And
these people have become channels. They become channels for revelation that they can't hold. But what that experiencing is something very, there's holiness in there and there's revelation in there. But the unholiness of it is their hearts can't hold it.
say what?
Their hearts can't hold what's being revealed to them. The reason he thinks he's God and the reason he thinks he's Buddha, Lahavdil, is because he's experiencing extraordinary light. But his pain and his fear and his ego is refracting that light. But it's light. There's a revelation that's coming in. But it's impure because it's fractured, but it's light. He thinks he's God because he's experiencing that. So next time you look at him, for what it's worth, I want you to look at him like there's something very holy happening within that. He does think he's God. You know what? We should all think we're God. Because it's Elamelikim. Now, of course, you can take that and do very stupid things with it. I know a lot of people that think they're God, by the way. It's not only a son. They should also be diagnosed with something with it. They want to be in a hospital, then no one will be outside the hospital taking care of it. But these people think they are. I had a good friend that done a lot of stress and suddenly thought he was Mashiach. He's done that, been there, done that. I mean, this guy wasn't so convincing. The two policemen that were holding him down on his floor was not policeman. His wife that was shooing his kids out of the room was not so convinced. I don't know how I was called in, but I'm on the floor saying, I'm also Mashiach, you're Mashiach, or Mashiach. When you looked in his eyes, the one thing I thought is, he's right. I'm not saying that as a nice devotee. I mean, he's actually contacting that part of himself that sees revelation. But he hasn't trained and conditioned his lower self to be able to handle that. But there's a power in looking at him, not in a condescending way, to realize there's a truth, there's a revelation that's coming to him. We cover a lot of ground tonight. I hope we come back next week and continue there. Don't lose it. Don't forget. Keep looking at everyone on the way home. Every object. When you wait at the bus stop, don't you dare turn on your cell phone and knock yourself out of it. Find a small little stone or can of Coke on the floor and stare at it like it's a revelation of God. See what happens. Thank you. 1 second, sir. Let me turn off this. I just need to do it.